Testing. Testing. All right. Sound good. Sorry, a little bit sooner than I was planning on, but we're all set up. The next thing we need to do to turn these nightstands and the dresser over there on the other bench into functioning pieces of furniture is add our drawer slides. We're gonna be using 16-inch undermount drawer slides for these. So a couple things we need to do. One of them, because these drawer fronts are gonna be inset. With that inset, let me step over to this side. With the drawer front inset, I need to add some plywood back there to catch the actual drawer front. Maybe doing it up higher would be better. And I'm gonna put my hand underneath. I need to put something in here to catch the back end of this drawer slide. Also, I'm planning to add some feet in the skirt around here. So the feet, I'm debating on either using like some 30 inserts or actually gluing it on with some tendons. So before I can even do that, another thing I need to do is right here up front, the skirt piece is going to be 2 3/8, which is going to tie right across halfway on this rail right here. So I need to sand the front. I need to put a piece of 3/4 inch plywood right here to actually give my skirt something solid to glue to. You know, with a 3/8 inch overlap, I don't really want to spray glue on this rail and have it squeeze out everywhere. And I'll probably add some tendons and stuff like that for alignment just to make sure everything lands exactly where I want it to. So I need to get that figured out. And then also for my legs, I'm going to need somewhere to attach them. So I'm going to cut a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that's going to sit down into here. So when I mill up my blocks, my feet are just going to be like, some 3x3, maybe 1.5 2 inches thick, pieces of red oak that are just going to sit down here on the corner. So I want to fill in flush to the bottom of this with some 3/4 inch plywood. If I have to, I can add some extra blocking on the top side. That'll give me plenty, something solid to mount, whether I do glue and tendons or if I add a threaded insert or whatever, that'll give me some blocking to attach to. I debate on doing like some strips or something, but I decided I'm just going to close in the whole bottom. One thing I can say is right now, these nightstands are already extremely heavy. I can imagine once they get their 1.5 inch countertop and the drawers and stuff placed in here, these are going to be really solid. So First thing we need to do, I have most of the skirt board material already milled up, but again, I can't install the skirt board around this until I put in my 3/4 inch plywood down here. So I'm going to have one more piece that needs to mill up. That's already milled, just needs to be ripped for the skirt board, but I want to get them all to the same thickness. And I also have a dresser over here. I haven't milled up the piece for the front side of the dresser, so that's still sitting back there rough. So I'm going to joint and plane that, get that to the same thickness as my pieces over here, rip them all down to 2.5. I might see what the max I can push it just to make this skirt down here around the bottom a little bit thicker. I might be able to go 2.5 and then just have it overlap this rail halfway. Debating, then we have to miter it, we'll attach it. We need to fill in the bottom, get ready for feet, and then attach blocking for all of our drawer slides. My goal is to get this part done today. Then tomorrow I can get my countertops on, attach my feet, and do final sanding. Everything's already currently sanded up to 150, so it's pretty much already there. We just got a little bit more sanding to do, some more detail sanding after that last glue up. Just some little spots like this. But if you guys did watch the stream, we use rags and straws to kind of clean up any of the larger glue spots. So just a little bit of one quick hit with a 120, 150. I think we'll be in good shape to continue on and get ready to start standing everything. So we're going to push these back. We're going to bring the camera here to the back of the shop. We're going to run this piece to the jointer, then the planer, and then we're going to set up to, the goal again is to get this to the same thickness as these pieces. So when I miter everything and wrap it around each one of the nightstands and the dresser, they can miter together. If one is thicker than the other, the miters won't work. So just gonna slide my planer over. We're gonna joint first. You want to make sure you lock your wells down. We're going to need to switch over the dust collection from the planer. Bring these holes over to the jointer. And I'll bring you guys back here for the camera shot. Just so you guys can see a little bit better. If you guys are curious for dust collection, let me turn the camera on so I can see. For dust collection, I'm using a wind dust collector. I have a canister filter, just haven't put it on yet. But I will say I got this little Woodstock trash can separator, and it's been working pretty nice. I will say it keeps that bag over there actually empty as long as I remember to dump my can. I would say as long as the can stays, about here, maybe like 2/3 full, give or take, and you dump it, it won't have the ability to pull the sawdust up and then pull it into the bag. So if you stay on top of it, it actually works really well. I think right here will be fine. Probably turn on the lights in the back room too. Now that garage door is stopping you guys to see the lights. So let me actually close the garage door so you guys can get some better lighting. All right, that should be a little bit brighter. Looks a little bit better. Let me grab my tape measure. I want to make sure I have the end feet I need for the board. I might need to slide my joiner forward just a little bit. And we'll slide the joiner up just a smidge. That's plenty. And that's plenty. This is a fairly narrow board, so I can bring the fence in some. Turn on the dust collector. I think one more pass to do it. Okay. Now we're gonna swap tools. Okay. We're gonna move the joints to the side and set back up to use the planer. Actually, that's enough. And there's plenty coming out this way. And let's get you guys like right there. Thank you. Definitely does do well. I'll give you a quick little show around after we finish up. All right. Yes, that's my little. I typically keep my planer and jointer back wall. My jointer actually goes behind that door, and my planer goes right behind this door. But that dust collection system, I plan to actually get that mounted over here on this wall with a canister filter, and then probably just have the trash can sitting on a little shelf, and then run ducting out to the rest of the shop, which would then clear out that space for a CNC laser engraver 3D printer in a little corner. And I don't use my exercise bike, so I'd probably eventually get rid of that. But then the rest of the shop, we have miter saw station. It has extension wings, so it actually collapses down. All the wings fold down onto the cart to make it nice and compact. But then the wings themselves also extend out like an extra 3 feet, so I can support a 10-foot material up here. Radial arm saw, just got it working. Hand tool bench, table saw, router table, pull out drawer bident units up top. That is a workbench, but also has a bunch of storage cubbies on the side, has a bunch of plywood in the slots on the back. That's why the back section raises up a little bit. Outfeed table with a bunch of drawers, bathroom, 3 recliners, and then those 2 are Polk style benches. This one is special though because it can get longer. These side wings extend out. But again, this dresser is currently sitting on it. And then they all are adjustable heights via a jack that's positioned beneath each one of the benches. And then bandsaw drill press, more cabinets for storage over there. What we were working on. I'm gonna drink a little bit of water, smoke a cigarette real quick. But our next step, now that we have all of the material milled down to the proper thickness, is to rip them all to their 2.5. Well, I was planning on 2 3/8 because this is 2 inch to the bottom of this rail. So 2 3/8 would bisect that bottom rail because it's a 3/4 inch rail. But I like the idea of the skirt extending a little bit past the bottom of the nightstand. That way, when I add my feet, you can't really see the connection. I'm going to be adding some 3/4 inch plywood around the inside of the bottom. That's going to help attach my feet. So I want this skirting to stick down past. So I want at least 2.5 to give me an 1/8 inch reveal, but we'll see what I can rip out of all my material. Those blocks back here are like 5.5. So I might be able to get, 2 5/8. We'll see what I can get. And yeah, everything's already jointed on one side. I think on this one, though, the max I can get because of this little chewed up piece right here is 2 5/8. So I guess I can get the maximum of what I want. And I only need like 68 inches to the short point. So plus 3 inches because it's going to be mitered. 71. So actually it's going to interfere with this little nub right here. So 2 5/8 is probably the max that I can go on the lifts on all these. I'm about to smoke a cigarette real quick, but then we're going to head back to the table saw, rip all of our pieces. How you doing, Christopher? Yeah, we're about to smoke a cigarette, and then we're going to come back to the table saw, rip these to 2.5, maybe 2 5/8. We'll see what our smallest, pair we can get out of it. So I think like some of these are 5.5. Some are, it was like 5 and 9. I think I saw one though that was like 5.25. So the max we can get out of it, because we have a 16th inch blade, it's a thin curve, would be 5 and 3, 2.5, maybe 2 and 9/16. So we'll have to see what we have back there as far as material. We'll set the table saw blade to it and then rip them all to the same dimensions. And then I can go into cutting all the miters. For these ones, will be pretty easy because I just need to place the board directly on the edge, and then chop 240. Mark the backside and chop 245s, and then the same thing for the side pieces. And this is something I was testing out yesterday with the Craig Edge, which is how we're going to do our joinery. Because you don't want to see any pin nails or anything. So I was practicing out how the Craig Edge worked on mitered joints, and they seem to do all right as long as your miter's cut pretty good. I would say I would typically want to cut this miter on the table saw, but like for the longer dressers, like a 78-inch piece, can't be done on my table saw. So we're going to do it on the miter saw, but I'm going to use my angle finder and my square to make sure my miter saw needs some adjustments. It's slightly out of square, so we're going to use our tools to make sure that at least this cut is set at a clean 45, because you want to get your joints as tight as possible. I think I had a test cut here. I've already trimmed it off where the joints weren't super tight. And I didn't like how it lined up after doing the Craig Edge tenon. So you want to make sure your miters are nice and tight so you can actually get a solid glue up. All right, yeah, I'm smoking a cigarette, and then we're going to rip these down. I'm probably going to go ahead and take the time to rip down a piece of plywood to fit down here at the bottom underneath this toe kick. Because when we add our skirting piece, we can glue it to the stiles here, but I like to be able to glue it to something solid, backing down here. So a piece of 3/4 inch plywood across here, we're going to pocket screw it with some fine thread pocket screws. Get those screwed in, sand up the front really smooth, and then we're going to start wrapping our trim pieces around. After we get that figured out, we're going to flip the nightstands over, and then we need to put our plywood in the very bottom. That's going to allow for my feet and also help me add blocking for my drawer slides. Because I think you guys are probably pretty far away when I showed it earlier. When I drop my drawer slide in, I want to have 3/4 of an inch right here because ours going to be inset for our drawer front. But I need something to mount this back section to. So we're going to run a piece of 3/4 inch plywood up the side here. And actually, before I put away the planer, I should figure out what I need to mill down those strips to. But actually, I'll hop back to that after we get our skirting and stuff figured out. Or I can figure that out while I smoke this cigarette. That's probably what we'll do. A little bit of math and a cigarette goes together. And there's a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, so that will work. So what we need to find out is what thickness plus 3/4 inch plywood gives me, because I want my 3/4 inch plywood on the sides to be resting perfectly flush with that edge. That way it'll be in line with the edge of the stiles on the front side. So when I mount my drawer slides, they're running perfectly perpendicular to the back side of the box. So we push that up tight. We'll grab our digital calipers. Oh, this one doesn't poke down the bottom. I need to grab my other calipers. I believe so. So what we need to do is pretty much take a probe and see what is the distance from this edge to this 3/4 inch piece of plywood. And we'll mill up a piece of probably some ash I have left over to that proper thickness, and then glue a strip here and glue a strip up there, and then we can add our piece of 3/4 inch plywood, which will bring us in plane with this edge. And I'm going to check it on this cabinet on the back side and over there on that side just to make sure we're safe. And once we have our piece milled up and we have our bottom panel in place, I can take my piece of 3/4 inch plywood and just bring it up here and rest it right next to the rails and mark for all my drawer slide locations, so I can actually just mount this, rest it off the bottom sheet, and get my references for my drawer slides. So thinking ahead, trying to make the install later on as easy as possible. It's about 22 millimeters or just under 7/8. .22 millimeters, and I actually got 7/8. So I think let me check this side. If it's the same, we'll go 7/8 on the thickness that we mill up for our strips, and then we'll just glue some 7/8 inch strips along the side. And I want to do that before I put up the planer. That way the planer is done for the day. .22 millimeters and 7/8. And that's the same. Let's just check this dresser over here and make sure we're still. I built all this stuff again the same joinery, same passes through the table saw and router and jointer and everything else. But it doesn't hurt to make sure before I mill up all these pieces and assume they're all going to be the same. Yeah, 22 millimeters, 7/8. So I have some leftover ash in the back of the shop. It's not really red oak, but ash is essentially just the other oak, in my opinion. Got a bunch just laying up under my table saw. It's already fairly jointed. That's going to be a little too short. I kind of want to run pieces from front to back. I guess I really don't need to. I just need somewhere to attach my plywood. That's probably just going to get screwed in. It's just long enough. And if I need 2 pieces on each 3 pieces on each cabinet, I'll mill up multiple of these. I think my piece of plywood would probably be like 5 or 6 inches. So I can probably cut this in half and then screw and glue the plywood to the front side. So I cut this in half. This would be one cabinet. I'm just going to grab 3 pieces about that length. These are all shorter. That will work. We just need to mill that down to 7/8. Then we'll probably rip it to like 1.5 inches or something. So now we can finish up with the planer. We'll hop over on the table saw at the same time. We can glue our strips directly inside of our cabinet carcasses. Let that dry, and we'll start cutting the plywood and our miters. And that sounds like a good plan. I always battle with order of operations, especially on the live stream. When I'm working by myself, I can kind of just go. And who cares if I'm spinning in circles, but I try to be efficient for you guys. You're gonna be planting some short pieces. All right, we're aiming for just about 7/8 or 22 millimeters. We have our. Why am I getting so many notifications? Oh, stream notifications. All right. I will message to get on that later. But yeah, we're aiming for about 22 millimeters. I have my calipers with me. So as I run these through the planer, I'll keep checking them for thickness until we get down to where we want it. And then we can go ahead and cut these down, glue those on the inside of the carcasses, rip down our plywood for our drawer slides, and we'll trim up plywood to fit down for the bottom. We'll do all that at the same time. So cutting our skirting, dropping the plywood. The plywood will probably get pocket screwed in, is what I'm thinking. So yeah. that should be it, but let's go make sure. It looks like I used another pass. This is just going to get ripped and then cut to shorter pieces and glued going this way. That way, when I take my 5-inch or however wide strip I take to run all the way up the side, it's going to allow me to screw into my rails. Screw in my drawer slides. This would be a good example. My drawer slides are going to sit in here like so, and then need somewhere to screw into on this back side. So by running a piece of 7/8 inch material this way, and probably in 3 spots, and then taking a 5-inch piece of 3/4 inch plywood, either gluing, screwing, however I want to mount it, mounting that directly to the side. That will give me somewhere to want to screw in my drawer slides. But it looks like this needs another pass on the planer. I'm still just a little proud. Yeah, the same on this side. So we're going to run that back through the planer, and then when we go back to the table saw, we'll rip all of these pieces and all the pieces for the skirting that's going to wrap around the bottom. And again, we'll probably rough out the piece of plywood that needs to fit in here. We'll probably just cut it to the outer dimensions of this box, or maybe a little bit smaller. And then I'll just have to do these notches, and I'll pocket screw it. And we'll get a pocket screw to the side panels, to the back panel. And I will probably go ahead and install this piece of 3/4 inch plywood across here. This little piece right here. And then that's going to give me something for my bottom panel to pocket screw and attach to on all 4 sides. Help locking the bottom, but also give me somewhere solid to mount my feet. So let's go give this one more pass from the planer, then we'll come back and check this. Hopefully we don't go too much. We're going to give it like a half a turn on the handle. We're just going to give it just a quarter turn. We'll give it a quarter turn. I'll go back and test it. It's also always good to sneak up on your fits, because if you went too far, you milled all this material for nothing, and then you'd be shimming or doing something else. Just a little bit. All right. And just to show you guys, I want that nice and flush. And also perfectly flush up here. So this can get ripped and chopped into smaller pieces to fill in the inside of the box. And let's see how far these come back. Total of 10 and 5/8. We're going to be coming back 3/4. So 11 and 3/8. So I'm trying to think. I probably just grab me like a 5 or 6 inch block and just butt it directly up against the backside and pull it off 3/4. Because these are like 16, 15 inches. I was going to cut them in half. So if I come off the back like 7 inches, that should give me plenty of room to mount my drawer slide. All right. And as far as the plywood we need to cut for the bottom, we have 18 by 18. So I'll cut me a couple 18 by 18 inch squares. Let's push these back to the edge of the bench so they're not in the way of the table saw. And then for this bottom, I'm just going to need a piece. I'm not going to use oak plywood for the very bottom or for that little fill-in piece because you will never see those. But for the attachments on the inside of the box, I'm going to use red oak plywood in case you ever pull out the drawer slides. It'll at least be red oak. And grab up my calipers and my square. Two and a half I can go 2 and 9/16 heavy and get 2 pieces out of each one of these. Howdy. That ain't something I remember. These boys have really serious attention. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is about these red oak boards. But they seem to have a ton of tension built up in them. Almost making it hard for me to cut. I'm going to rerun these and just move the fence over a tiny bit. Just so that way I know the edges are perfectly straight. Try to get it with the middle as little burns or blade marks as possible. All right, a lot of mess later. And that piece is going to run around the front side and on the sides of the nightstand. So I miter and run all the way around. And I made this. This came out. We're aiming for originally 2.5, 2 and 9/16, and we got 2.5. So we need a 2-inch plus 3/8. So it's going to hang down past the bottom by about 1/8 of an inch, and that's going to allow me to when I attach my feet, my little blocks of my feet, it'll hide that transition. I might make it a little bit more than that, try to have it hanging past the bottom by 1/4 of an inch. I think that would give me this 2.5, 2 inches. So it'll lap over top of this rail by 1/4 of an inch, which I haven't really. Again, it's not going to be the same revealing all these because this is going to overlap that. I'd rather, again, try to hide that transition of the feet at the bottom. So that's where we're going to go with that. That is all these pieces. Now I need to rip up the blocking. So I'm going to go around the inside and then also rip up some 3/4 inch plywood for the front side and the bottom. So this piece needs to be at least like 2 inches, I think. And then 2 inches on all the cabinets. So I ripped me a 2-inch piece of 3/4 inch plywood. That is at least 13, so 26 inches long. So I'll probably use this piece. Because the front of the other one is 68, so I can rip 2 2-inch pieces out of this and get all my fill pieces. And I guess this sheet will do my bottoms. We'll go 18 by 18. But before we get to the plywood stuff, let's go ahead and rip my other pieces of red oak for the inside of the box. I have 3 blanks here. I have 3 dressers and one dresser and 2 nightstands. They all need these pieces on both sides. And all of these are like, the smallest one is 14. So I can get at least 7-inch pieces out of all of these. So that'd be more than long enough to catch the 16-inch drawer slide. And then I want to get 3 rips. It's 4 3/4, 4 3/4. About 4 3/4. So I can go 1.5 inches, give or take. Yeah, 1.5 inches should work out close enough. Let's reset my blade height. go to the miter saw to get chopped in half. I can put these on the miter saw because I'm going to need to rip some bigger pieces. We'll rip that 2 inches first. All right, let's set this to 2 inches. We'll get 2 rips out of this. Before I make a second rip, I need 2 pieces at 13. 13 and an eighth. 13 and an eighth. So that's 26. That leaves me with 70 inches out of an 8-foot piece. So I actually only need 1 rip. Because boom, bam, that's on 63. So before I waste the rest of that plywood, we'll leave that as it is. This rip just needs to get cut up and then pocket screwed. Put this over here on the miter saw. Actually, this can go back up. This can go over to the miter saw. And now we need some roughly 18 by 18 inch pieces and 21 wrenches without hitting that stuff. I'm going to slide these up front and out of the way. And then we're going to cut some 18 by 18 inch pieces. And then I can just take that and the cabinet. Sit it on top there. And then I really just need to trace out the inside. I'll track saw and jigsaw out the waste. And then when I cut this shape out, I can run some pocket holes all around it, flush it up to the very bottom, clamp it in, pocket screw that in. But actually, what I should have done before I did that is my 2-inch piece. I need to cut across here to install that. I'm trying to think before I switch off of the table saw. Is there anything else I need to rip? I could rip the red oak plywood for the drawer slide pieces and get that out the way. That's what I need to do. What I want to do is make the drawer slide pieces. I want to cut these in half so I can go and glue these in. But I need to raise it up by 3/4 of an inch. I'll take a scrap piece of 3/4 inch plywood, cut it to where it can fit in there, and I need to clamp this in. Thank you. And then we'll clamp this little 7-inch piece off the bottom by 3/4 of an inch. So that also, when I come to fit in my bottom, I can just register it off of those blocks I put in, pocket screw everything nice and flush. And yeah, that'll give me a place to mount my feet. Because if the 3/4 inch plywood is flush with all this, my feet can mount to the 3/4 inch plywood to here, wherever, whether it's a threaded insert, whether I use dowels, etc. And then just have the skirt board hang down enough to where you won't see that connection. So what we'll do first is actually cut the plywood for in there and pocket screw that. And so I don't have to move around a lot of stuff. We're going to use the right-hand side of the miter saw. We'll leave the rest of that still up there. And for dimensions, we're looking at, I think it was 13 1/8. 13 1/8. Grab all these rail pieces. Move those out of the way. I can take this, put it back on the bench, flip up my flip stop. And I could set up a stop block, but I only need to cut 2 at this dimension. So make sure it fits. And it's nice and snug. I need one more. And that last piece can be used for the dresser. Well, that's going to allow me to do this door piece in here to fill that gap. So when I actually glue my front piece on, it has some solid to attach to. And I need to put this in so I can actually properly trace my bottom. And then I can cut out the bottom, install the bottom, and cut all these pieces, which I might go ahead and do while I'm at the miter saw. Well, actually, no. What I need to do before I do anything else is actually sand the front side of all these carcasses, because I did not do that. Just trying to get all this nice and flush and even. So I'm probably going to put you guys up here on the bench so you guys can see what I'm doing. Switch over my dust collection and grab my sander, and we'll knock down the face of that real quick. Going to drill a couple pocket holes. Got that set to 3/4. Let's loosen up the jig and get that set. So this is one. And where did I put the other one? No. So we're going to drill some pocket holes on the side and also going up. Those are going to mount to this little rail right here, which will stiffen that up. And it makes that nice and strong. Make sure we're on speed 2. And then we're just going to throw a couple along the top edge. And that'll give me something to glue and screw my mitered piece to. And that'll just sit in there nice and flush to everything. Yeah, we'll clamp that up real nice and drive in those screws. And now we'll lock that in. and then I'll retrace my bottom piece. Cut out my bottom piece. All right. Now I can screw these in there, mark for the bottom piece. And once I mark for the bottom piece, then I'll go ahead and cut and clamp in all of these pieces. Cool. So let me flip these up so I can do that. Actually, I left my pocket screws outside in my truck. So I actually need to run out and grab those. I had to get some fine thread pocket screws for this occasion. I'll be right back. For hardwood species, you want to make sure that you use fine thread screws. Listen, I got an impact over there. Let me grab a couple clamps. Where are my quick clamps? I got like 3 in here. Oh well, instead of looking around for those, I'll make these ones work. So we'll flip that on its back. Make sure we're perfectly flush with our rail right here. And actually, I'd rather be just a little bit shy than for it to stick past. So I was looking for my quick clamps, would make this a little easier. It's all good. We'll just get it aligned and then drive in our screws. And now with that, we can actually trace our bottom. I also noticed how we left it just a little bit up because I didn't want to grip something that's 2 inches. Then that caused the actual nightstand to not sit flat. And now we have our complete layout for our cutout for the bottom of that nightstand. Once we cut that out, I can drill pocket holes all the way around and screw that in. I will now do the second one the same fashion. And then we'll cut it. Well, then I'll glue on these pieces down here. And then we'll cut out the bottom piece. And while that glue is setting, probably cut down countertops. Make sure our pocket screws are facing upwards. Get that just behind there. Ouch. All right. Next thing I need to do is trace this at the bottom, and then we're gonna head over to the miter saw to cut all of my little divider pieces, which I need to see if I cut it at 7 inches. Will that work? Because what was this again? This whole thing from front to back is 10 and 5/8 plus a 3/4 inch setback is 11. I can just measure from front to back. Overall, from front to back, well, from here to there, 16 and a half. We have 10 and 5/8 plus 3/4 is 11 and 3/8. So 5 and an 1/8 from this back lip is going to be blank. I'm only going to cut these to like 7, 8 inches, I think, depending on how long those are. So, I don't know. I'll probably just space it off the back of the cabinet 3.5 inches or something, and then put my block there. So that way when I do my 5-inch piece of plywood, I know that I'm going to have a lot to screw to. Shit, let's go 7 inches. Oh, no, wait. Let me trace this bottom, and then we'll cut that. All right, both of these are ready to be cut. The next thing I want to do is cut those other pieces to glue on the inside while I cut the bottom panels. So let's go back to the miter saw. Three, 6, and what's the shortest one? Yeah, it's like 14 and a quarter. So we'll go like 7 inches. And the best way to set up a stop block for something that small is to mark your piece at 7 inches. I'll bring my blade over here to where I'm chomping at 7 inches. And then I'll just use my miter saw clamp and a scrap block or something. And that will give me all my pieces. All right, these are all cut. Is this too long? Let me chop this a little bit shorter. So this is going to be my 3/4 inch piece of plywood at the very bottom. I want my piece, this piece, to be glued right above that line. Just to make sure when I drop in my bottom panel, it ends up flush all the way across the bottom. Now I want to raise it up about 3.5 inches and then glue this right here on that line. Glue that one in. We'll glue another one at the top, another one on both sides, and one about here in the middle. So then when I skin it with a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, probably oak plywood, just in case you ever look on the inside of the drawer boxes, again, your drawer slide has something. With this being right here, and I skin it later with a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, that gives me somewhere to screw my side rail into. So that's our game plan. Now I gotta figure out what's the best way to get these clamped on that line and where I want it. But I think using a spacer block like this will make it really easy. I need to grab a bunch more of these small clamps. Yes, I am. Realistically, the only ones I really need to get done before I drop in this bottom panel is this one, so I can actually clamp it. The one in the middle, I'll probably brad nail or screw it up there. Let me grab a few more of those small clamps. I know I have more than 6 small clamps. Guess the rest are in the truck. That might actually be worth grabbing. Because again, the only thing I'm trying to glue up before I cut the bottoms and everything else is this bottom section. Actually, I got my track saw clamps in here, so those will work. All right, space it about 3.5 inches off the bottom. Let's do this side first. Then you guys actually have a better view over here. We have our pencil line made. I can space this off and rest it right there on the line. And grab a scrap piece of 3/4 inch plywood and make sure we're flush. So I can throw a clamp up here, then throw a clamp down low. Kind of again, just to make sure we're right where we want it to be. And the last thing I want to double check before I go into doing this is if I drop my bracket in there, 3/4 inch reveal, and I have all of this space from here down to here to screw into, and there's a ton of holes on the bracket. So this setup, I know I'll be able to have somewhere to fasten to that is in plane with this front style right here. The whole goal is to bring, with the plywood, to bring that flush with this bottom style in the back, which is flush with this one right here. And yeah, some pin nails and some staples would be nice. But this air compressor in my shop stopped working. I have my pancake inside of my truck, but I don't feel like grabbing it. I probably should grab me a wet rag. So I don't want a bunch of squeeze out everywhere. And that's exactly what this is going to do. We're right on the line. Check with a piece of 3/4 inch plywood. Put one of these on it until I was hoping that wouldn't move it. These might be better to lay in place with CA glue, but I'd be more worried that I fuck something up doing it that way. So we're just gonna go like that. Clamp that back on. And throw another one down here at the bottom. Remove that clamp because I'm going to need it. Make sure there's no squeeze out on the inside. And check with a piece of 3/4 inch plywood. That can come down just a little bit. Where's my mallet? There we go. So then when I cut out the bottom panel, matching the scribe lines that I just laid out, the bottom panel will come and rest right up against this, making it nice and easy to pocket screw all the way around the frame. We can glue this side, we'll glue the other side, and again, the stuff I'm gonna glue in the middle and at the top from my plywood can kind of get done whenever. I just want this bottom piece done so I can actually drop in my bottom panel. It'd be kind of hard to clamp this piece in there if the bottom panel was already in. Grab me another one. Or I can go a little less on the glue. So, I mean, this isn't really holding anything. The piece of plywood that's going to hold my drawer slides is going to get screwed into this. So again, I could use screws, could use CA glue. The screws I put in might actually go through this into my side panels. So this doesn't have to be super reinforced. Just want to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. So don't need a bunch of extra glue on this piece. Nor do I want a bunch of squeeze out. Again, this part is never going to be visible unless you take apart the cabinet, but we like it to look as crisp as if the client will be looking at it. That's close. So I come in and put on a quick clamp. Now throw one of these on. I won't get it super tight, just get it kind of holding it in place. And then I'll tap it exactly where she needs to be. Take that off. Grab my little spacer block. And down here at the bottom, we have a little bit of a lip. Give that a tappy tappy. Come up here and check the top. All right, that's good for me. That's one down. We'll slide this one other way, then we'll do the other one. All right, you don't really have much room to slide it out. Actually, I can flip it all the way over and move it out the way that way. I actually need to check my phone battery, make sure it's not about to die on me. Yes, it's coming out pretty good. Almost like I planned it like this since I started the build. Not like I came up with this morning. Definitely need to start doing a little bit more planning on this project. Yeah, of course it was going to move. Let's take that out. Move this clamp. Clean up that excess glue right there. All right. Yes, thank you for joining in, Cuzzo. Probably only be live for like another 20, 30 minutes. If I can get this glued up, cut out the bottom panels. My phone's on like 23%. Don't want the stream to cut out on me. But then I'll probably keep going for the rest of the night, try to get the skirts on, etc. before I leave out. Oh, that was actually perfect. This one I should do a slight tap. There we go. All right, let those dry. Then our bottom panels can drop in nicely. And my jigsaw is actually inside of my truck. I think that might be how I decide that that's going to be the end of this life. So where's my phone at? It's at 25%. Sure, I'm going to charge my phone. I was about to start cutting the bottom panels. We've already traced them to fit the bottom of the cabinet. After we have this cut out, we can go ahead and pocket screw it as we get screwed into the bottom, right up against our little cleats we put in there. And then the only way to do is add the rest of the cleats and our 3/4 inch plywood along the edges. And then we set up for our skirting and our drawer slides. And from there, we're building up drawer boxes, final sand, and countertop. But again, phone's about to die. My jigsaw's outside inside the truck. So I'll need my phone for flashlight to go in there and look and stuff. So we got about 2.5 hours on this stream. We're going to call it a night. I think I'll probably do another stream tomorrow. My birthday is on Wednesday. So I'm probably going to work on this for the next 2 days. And then I'm going to give this a short break to relax on my birthday. But if you guys have enjoyed this so far, please let me know down below. Smash that like button. Leave me a comment and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.